welcome everybody who might be joining us on YouTube or on later on cable access television or Kingdom access television. Of course, it's a beautiful day outside, so I think most people might be out enjoying it right now, but we hope that you catch this broadcast before nightfall comes so that you can step into your backyard and think about what Bobby is about to teach you and learn about the night sky, both at home and on your own, and with us whenever you watch this video. So if you're in Zoom, of course, a reminder, you can click on our chat or our Q&A to ask us questions. If you're on YouTube or cable access television, you can, of course, send me your questions anytime before, during, or after class. My email is dbush@fairbanksmuseum.org. That's DBUSH. And without further ado, I'll now turn it over to Bobby Farlice-Rubio for our What's Up Tonight Skies class this afternoon.
Well, thanks, Drew. And welcome, everybody. If you're here live, you might be wishing you were out in the sun. I don't blame you. Today is the first nice sunny day in a while. So I'm going to hope that the skies stay as clear as they are now for tonight so you can see what's going to be in the sky. And over the last couple of weeks, we've been doing this twice a week, and I was going into detail about specific constellations. But I thought now that we're well into the month of May, that I would take a step back and give you the big picture as to what's going on in the sky right now. Like those winter constellations are mostly gone, like Orion. Forget about that, dude. You won't see him till fall's hunting season. So we're going to go into that. A little bit of the sort of the general layout of the springtime sky as opposed to so much detail of the individual constellations. And then we'll go into the constellations a little more as the season progresses. But thanks for joining us. And if you haven't done so already, you might want to get the software called Stellarium. That's a stellarium.org, the website for that free planetarium simulation software that you can run on any computer. And this is what Stellarium looks like right now. I've got it set up to show, well, not exactly our landscape yet, but the grass is catching up with this picture, and the trees are maybe a couple of weeks behind what you see here. But this is actually what the sky looks like right now. And at the bottom of the screen, you can see the time, 2:32 in 24-hour military time. And I'm doing this from Barnet. And over here are the controls. And when you want to advance time in Stellarium, just hit the L key. You can select the sun like I did. You can see that going down. Tonight's sunset's going to be at 8:07. So we are more than a month away from the summer solstice, but already our days are much longer than our nights. And kids with early bedtimes have to do extra chores maybe to get the privilege of staying up later than usual to see the night sky. But what is that? Venus. Look at how close Venus is to where the sun is. You may have noticed that Venus is getting lower in the sky when it becomes visible. If you were watching Venus during the winter months and early spring a month ago, you had hours to see Venus after the sunset. But now, look at that. It's already low on the horizon. So Venus is still visible for a short period of time. And the reason why is because Venus is progressing in the direction of the sun right now. It's a planet going around the sun, and it's on the part of its path where it's going to get closer to the direction of the sun. So we're going to lose sight of Venus, and that's something that Venus always does. But that's why it's harder to see and lower on the horizon. But let's go a little bit later into the night. This is about 8:20 or so. By around almost 9 o'clock, 8:45, you should start to see some of the stars around Venus. And although Orion is gone, one of the members of the winter sky is going to be with us for a while. Should I say two members? They're the twins, the Gemini constellation. But notice how Venus will at this time be too low for most people to see by the time it gets fully dark. And this is about 9:39, almost 10 o'clock. That's about how long you're going to have to wait for the sky to be this dark. So by then you may have lost sight of Venus, but I want to point out another star that is one of the brightest in the sky, and it's going to be visible even through the summer, although we saw it all winter. This is a star that has a circumpolar nature. If you've been watching the older shows, you've heard that word before. It's a star called Capella. And Capella, which means the she-goat, think of Capricorn, capricious behavior. Frank Capra, well, yeah, his last name means goat in Italian. But Capella is the female goat. That's the name, and it's part of the constellation Auriga. But this star has a unique property of its own. I'm going to take you way through the night just to show you that Capella, being very bright, is a star that's always manages to stay above the horizon through the night. And look, I just advanced you past midnight. Notice that Capella is still visible. And here we are right before sunrise. Did you see it? I'm going to go back through time. I'm going to play with it a little bit. But Capella is right there on the northern horizon. Capella is a star that never sets below our horizon. And all winter, we could see it in the nighttime. But all summer, you will also be able to see it low near the northern horizon. And every year, without fail, somebody calls me at the Fairbanks Museum to say that there's a UFO flying through the mountains behind their house. There's a really bright light. It's way too bright to be something natural. And it's always Capella. So here I am bringing us back to tonight at a decent time. Oh, this is 10:45, maybe a little earlier. So a star that will be getting your attention near Venus. There's Venus just about to set. This is a little after 10 o'clock. I was going backwards through time. But Capella deserves a lot of attention. And if you know which one it is, you won't be fooled into thinking it's a UFO. So keep your eye on that cool, bright star, because as it gets lower on the horizon, it gets through the thickest layers of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is thicker from our perspective, the lower you are on the horizon. And as Capella passes through that, the light that you see is going through more and more air, and that causes it to flicker and twinkle even more rapidly. And sometimes the colors can change. Remember that the twinkling of stars is caused by the refraction, the air causing the light to bend in its path. And that can also cause a spectral effect, meaning that a star can actually look several different colors within a few seconds as the air is bending and twisting the light. So Capella is, just because of where we live and because of its bright nature, one of the perfect stars to watch this phenomenon with. So watch Capella. Don't confuse it for Venus, but they are going to both be low in the western horizon as the sun sets. And we could talk more about the constellations like we've done before, but I just want you to know that Gemini is most easily found by looking for the twin stars of Pollux here and Castor. And those are the heads of the two twin brothers. And then over here, another winter star that's lingering on, Procyon, which is the brightest star of Canis Minor, the little dog. Remember, the Canis Major had Sirius, the brightest star, but Sirius is gone from our sight for the season, and we won't see Sirius again until the fall. So you've got the little dog, Procyon and Canis Minor, you've got Gemini, and you've got Auriga, the constellation that is the home to Capella. And those are winter constellations, but as you can see, because of their height in the sky, they're still going to be with us. And then looking a little bit more towards the south, there is Leo the lion. Let me put up some names so we can keep track of what we've been looking at. Cancer the crab, I'm not going to talk much about because that constellation is really difficult to see, but Leo is easy to find, and Leo is right next to Virgo. And so in my mind, Leo and Virgo are the dominant constellations of the time sky. Leo is a sign of spring. You start seeing him rising in the evenings when winter starts to give up its hold on the land and things start to melt. You'll start seeing Leo rise. But now Leo is already in the middle of the sky by the time it gets dark. And Virgo, being associated with Persephone, the goddess of flowers, and many other goddesses, is a constellation that literally is a harbinger of the summertime. She appears in the sky when our flowers start to bloom and when all of our green, grass starts to grow. So that's another constellation that you're going to be seeing for the rest of spring and through the summer in the sky. Now, I want to bring our attention to something that's now rising in the east and southeast, because here's where we see new stuff. Last video, I talked about the summer triangle. You can see Vega and Deneb, and a little bit later, you'll see Altair, the third star of the summer triangle. But already in the southeast, we're starting to see something that is a sign of summer, but it's such a big constellation that you can see little bits of it arriving now, and then you wait until the middle of summer and you'll be able to see the entire thing. I'm not talking about Libra, but there is a connection here. So, first of all, Libra is not the greatest of constellations. You can see that the diagram here shows a little rhombus, but it's hard to turn that into the scales necessarily. I don't even see it the way that picture shows it. So I don't always agree with the artwork in Stellarium, but when I look at this as scales, I usually see that this is the top of the scale and this is the balance beam. And maybe one of the plates is down here and this is the other plate, and whatever's on this side weighs more than what's on this side. But Libra has never been a very remarkable constellation. It is thought that this was actually made up by a guy named Hipparchus of Rhodes, because he's the father of the Greek zodiac. So yes, Libra is part of that zodiac set of constellations. The sun and the planets and the moon will appear to go through this part of the sky. That's what that line is showing you. The ecliptic is what scientists call it. But during the time of Hipparchus of Rhodes, he didn't have 12 constellations in the zodiac. He came around in a time when there were different cultures in the Mediterranean that had different numbers. Like the Egyptians had 10 constellations that they thought were part of the zodiac, and the people in the Middle East thought there were 15 descendants of the Babylonian tradition. And he lived on the island of Rhodes in the middle of all of these cultures, and he thought that maybe it would be nice if there were 12, since we have 12 months in our calendar and 12 notes on the musical scale and 12 gods in Mount Olympus. Well, maybe we should have 12 constellations in the zodiac. So he decided to do something. He modified an existing constellation to create Libra. And there's some historical hints in the names of the two brightest stars of Libra. This is what's kind of funny about this. These are Arabic names: Zubin esh-Shamali and Zubin el-Ganubi. Definitely some of the most fun star names to pronounce. And if my research is correct, the Arabic words that these come from, they're ancient Arabic words, not modern Arabic, but the Arab language as it was known in medieval times. Zubin esh-Shamali means left claw, and Zubin el-Ganubi means right claw. Left claw and right claw. What does that have to do with a scale? Well, the hint is that the scales are right next to another constellation that we know as the Scorpion. So you're going to have to do some imagining here. There's Zubin el-Shamali, there's Zubin el-Ganubi, and look at the illustration of the claws of the Scorpion. Now, let me take these pictures out and just imagine that at one point, folks, maybe in the Middle East, saw a scorpion with incredibly long claws that stretched way out, which would have made the Scorpion constellation much bigger than it is now. It was grand and it was sort of terrifying with those big extra long claws, more like lobster claws than scorpion claws, if you ask me. So this is part of the fun of studying astronomy as through the ages. People have always changed the names of things in the sky, and appropriation from different cultures is commonplace in this. But in the case of Libra, it was a constellation that was created out of thin air, you could say, because Hipparchus wanted to create the calendar zodiac in a way that matched his sensibilities as an ancient Greek person who thought that the number 12 was sacred. So he created Libra. And why did he pick the scales? Well, that's another cool thing about this. Right now, we are in the spring. And if you remember the story of Virgo from previous shows, Virgo starts to disappear in the autumn when the sun starts to travel in that part of the sky. Libra down here is also going to be blocked out by the sun later in the autumn, but I feel like I'm opening a huge can of worms here. If you remember me talking about the zodiac dates and how they've shifted, when Hipparchus of Rhodes created the zodiac, the fall equinox, which are now is the third week of September, usually around the 22nd or 21st of September, that date used to happen when the sun was in front of where Libra is. And now that date occurs when the sun is in front of where Virgo is. This is why the dates of the zodiac have shifted by about a month. But in ancient Greek times, the fall equinox happened when the sun was in the direction of Libra, or the claws of that giant clawed scorpion that the Arabs saw in the sky. So when Hipparchus wanted to create this new constellation, he thought, wouldn't it be nice to put something in this part of the sky that represents balance? Because equinox means equal night, and that is the time when day and night do become equal. It's not exactly on that date, but we'll get into that as we get into the fall. But balance, scales, they're something that is a symbol of equality. And he thought equinox, that should be where the sun is during that time. So he created Libra out of the claws of the scorpion, and he picked a symbol that would be relevant to the season. But now the dates have shifted, and now the sun is actually in Virgo instead of in Libra during the fall equinox. So now, one last thing about this Libra scale idea. The scale of balance was kind of like new technology during Hipparchus' time. So it kind of stands out in the sense that it is actually something that would have been considered new and high tech. Like, imagine if in the future our descendants are making constellations that are based on the technology that we have today. Like, oh, well, that's the smartphone constellation. Oh, and that is the hybrid electric vehicle constellation, the Prius in the sky. I know it sounds silly, but that's what ancient peoples did. And if you remember my previous shows about the Southern Hemisphere, when a lot of those constellations were named, they were named by people alive in the 1700s. So we have the microscope and the clock and the telescope in those hemispheres. So Libra was sort of one of these, you could say dated, it's time stamped by the fact that Hipparchus chose the scales to represent it. So Libra is starting to become visible now, but it's not a spectacular constellation. If you want to be old school, you could just say that it is the claws of the scorpion finally starting to rise. And I'll wait till maybe next week to talk a little bit more about the scorpion, because in addition to being one of the oldest constellations that we know about, the scorpion has a very different identity here in Vermont, according to the folklore of the Abenaki people, the first Vermonters. So that's something that requires its own time. So, like I said, I hope to give you the big picture. I'm sorry I spent so much time on Libra, but if I zoom out, you can kind of see what's going on. We see Gemini, we see Cancer, the crab, but that one's not very spectacular. We see Leo, the lion, we see Virgo, we see the scales, and a hint of the scorpion that is starting to arrive in our springtime as we transition to summertime. But looking in the opposite direction, in the north and east, remember we talked about the summer triangle last couple shows. There's the Swan Cygnus, and there is the constellation of the Lyra with Vega, that very bright star of the summer triangle. So there's two of the three, and you can see a hint of the eagle, Aquila. So there is the summer triangle starting to become visible. And over in the north, there's some things that are always going to be there. The big bear and the little bear. And of course, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. And Draco gets the best in the summer. So we'll talk more about this in a future broadcast of the Planetarium. And I don't always see the pictures the way that these illustrations in Stellarium do. So don't rely on these cartoonish pictures. But it's kind of nice sometimes to put them up and just see how many constellations there are, like a jigsaw puzzle, and give yourself a challenge to see how many of them you can learn. Some of them really do look like the symbols or animals or people that they represent. Some of them are a really big stretch of the imagination. And I think it's fair to say that Libra is one of those that's a stretch. But if you're wondering, it's right here. There are the scales of Libra. And I think I'll stop the Stellarium there, because I think that's about all for today. However, we have a lot of things coming up soon. And if you keep watching these shows every week, we're going to go into some more of the summertime constellations, give you some of that background, and give you the big picture as well, because in the direction of Scorpius, the scorpion, we also have a lot of planets that are going to be lurking in the sky. So as we lose sight of Venus, we're going to gain the sight of up to 3 more planets later this summer. So keep watching and enjoy the fine weather that we have today. And if it's clear tonight, I hope that you keep looking up. So any questions float in there from the public that happen to be sitting inside today?
Just checking my email right now. Just to see maybe if we have any. But actually, I think Well, it looks like we're all good. I think everybody's just out enjoying the sun today. But you know what? I hope everybody enjoys this class very much when they do get back inside and they're thinking about learning with Bobby and wanting to get out and look at the night sky. So a warm thank you to Bobby for teaching us today. I know a bunch of people will be viewing this soon. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
All right, Drew. And this, unfortunately, will be the last one of these planetarium shows that Drew will be doing for us. So if you've been watching these, I want to give a hearty thanks to Drew. He's done a great job for us at the Fairbanks Museum, and we're going to miss him. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Bobby.